As the Baltimore DA gets ready to try yet another officer next week in the death of Freddie Gray, we are now learning that the Baltimore sheriff, who signed off on criminal charges for all of these cops, was never a part of the investigation. And our next guest is reporting that all of this, combined with the previous reports about the prosecution withholding evidence from the defense, may result in a very rough patch ahead for Marilyn Mosby's office. Jeff Abel is a reporter and weekend anchor in our Fox affiliate in Baltimore. They've been doing great reporting in this case. Jeff, thank you so much for being here. So Marilyn Mosby goes before the judge next week, and what specifically will she have to answer for and about?
Well, the primary problem here is the revelation that came out of the assistant sheriff, who claimed that, he's the man whose signature is at the bottom of all 6 of those statement of charges, the documents that were used to arrest the 6 police officers. He's now saying that he actually had nothing to do with this investigation. He says he didn't collect evidence, he didn't interview witnesses, he had nothing to do with the investigation. So now the big question, who did have something to do with the investigation? And that's what's leading us to Marilyn Mosby, our state's attorney, who could be called to the stand herself. Because
this is on the heels of another person coming out and saying that she didn't have anything to do with the investigation. Detective Donnell Taylor said that the summary of case she was given to read to the grand jury, she disagreed with all of it. And she felt that Marilyn Mosby shut her down in the grand jury proceeding because Mosby knew that if this detective was able to answer the questions honestly, her story about what happened would completely conflict with the theory of the DA. This case is falling apart.
It is. It does seem to be falling apart. You're right. She did testify in that last trial that she was basically given a script to read before the grand jury, and while she didn't agree with it, she had to pretty much self-edit as she was reading. She didn't want to give the grand jury information which she did not agree with. And all of this combined has raised a lot of questions about who did this investigation, and people want to know what's behind it. You know, this is the same prosecutor that promised a thorough, complete, and independent investigation here when she walked down the steps of the War Memorial Building, promising all of this investigation to be accurate. And now there's a lot of questions of where's the beef.
And this judge has warned her office repeatedly that if they continue, he's caught them a few times already withholding evidence that they were supposed to turn over to the defense. And he's made very clear if he catches them doing that again, there's going to be hell to pay. She's 0 for 3 on these prosecutions. Brian Rice is up next. There'd been a lot of pressure for her to not proceed with the remaining 3. She's going for it as of now, correct?
She's doubling down, it appears. There appears to be no effort to drop these charges. There appears to be no efforts to dismiss them on the part of the judge. We're having a motions hearing here on Tuesday, and that could be an explosive hearing, and we could see some kind of direction on that day.
Wow. Fascinating. Thank you so much, Jeff. Great to see you.
You bet.
Well, one law professor who happens to have a background in some pretty high-profile cases is now filing a complaint to have Ms. Mosby disbarred. And he's not even sure that Tuesday's trial or any of the remaining trials will ever play out. Professor John Banshaff is a public interest law professor at George Washington University Law School. Professor, it's great to see you.
And thank you. And I think you're right. Her case is not just falling apart. It has fallen apart. And that's one of the key parts in the complaint. As you know, a prosecutor must have a reasonable belief that she can prove beyond a reasonable doubt all of the elements of the case. Maybe she had that at the beginning. But now, after you've had these 2 judges' opinions, where he has thrown out virtually every one of her legal theories, said there's no evidence, no evidence, no evidence on most of the facts, I think it's almost impossible for her to say that she has reasonable belief that she can succeed before the same judge. And if she goes ahead with it, that could be putting the nail in the coffin of disbarment.
This judge has said explicitly that there's no proof of how Freddie Gray injured himself, got the injury that led to his death. You haven't been able to prove that. That's going to be an issue on and on and on in the remaining cases. And, she has different theories for the remaining guys, like it was an improper arrest for Brian Rice. He was the arresting officer. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think they're all basically the same theories because they involve the van driver, Goodson, the most serious charges, the most charges. He's the central person. If you can't convict him, I don't think you can convict the others. And this is very reminiscent, unfortunately, of the Mike Nifong cases way back 10 years ago, the infamous Duke Lacrosse rape cases, and I think you and I both had a hand in those. Mike Nifong continued to prosecute even as his case fell apart. In his case, he was eventually disbarred. He was also sued for $180 million, forced into bankruptcy. And there are already suits against Marilyn Mosby. I think they are about to be strengthened. And as you put it before, she's in big trouble.
She's got some skin in the game
but
now.
I think it may not be too late for her to back out. Just today, the head of the Baltimore delegation in the State Assembly issued a statement saying she achieved justice just by filing the indictments. Whether or not they win or lose, she has already achieved justice. And one interpretation of that is he's paving the way for her to step down, saying, look, I stuck my neck out, I indicted these cops, I took 3 trials, but because of these rulings of the judges, I just can't go on. I think it's something that most of her followers would now accept.
He's given her an off-ramp, and we'll see
Well,
whether
we don't
she
know
takes
for
it.
sure. We won't find out till next week. But if she doesn't, if she goes ahead knowing that this judge has said all of her theories are no good.
Right.
The fact that they weren't seatbelted in, it's not a crime. The fact that they didn't immediately call for medical attention, it's not a crime. As you said, nobody knows when this injury occurred. She can't possibly prove it. She's going to have to explain to a disciplinary committee how she could have reasonable belief that she could. And by the way, the same may apply to the other prosecutors also, not just Marilyn.
Thank you, sir.